Okay, well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to this competition briefing event. I'm Simon Masters. I'm the Deputy Director for this challenge, and delighted today to be joined by my colleagues Izzy and Lynne, also from a rather large contingent from the Knowledge Transfer Network, who've been instrumental in bringing this event together at quite short notice, and also a welcome to those who are joining us online today. Also, so new in fact his name hasn't appeared on the slide, I'd like to introduce Mark McNally, who's recently joined us as the director for this challenge, and at this stage I'll invite Mark just to say a couple of words and to introduce himself.
Thanks, Simon. Good to see a lot of people in the audience. So, as Simon's already said, Mark McNally, Challenge Director for Manufacturing Made Smarter. You'll be glad to hear that I was sitting on your side of the fence only a few months ago, looking at waiting for Made Smarter and wondering when it was ever going to appear. I think it's been around since about 2017. I didn't elect just to sort of step over the fence and decide that I needed to drag it screaming into the sort of industry environment, but no, just to give you a bit of background very briefly, I've lived with the Industry 4.0 challenge for around 2 years. I was the head of the Global Manufacturing Innovation team at Jaguar Land Rover, so my background is in automotive. But as you've already seen, and hopefully you're experiencing, that digital manufacturing and Industry 4.0 Made Smarter is relatively industry agnostic. It's around the technologies and the opportunities that brings. And obviously, as we go through today, I hope to meet as many of you as I can, and obviously discuss the opportunities that you have, and obviously share with you on the briefing session. I'm glad to say that we have competition 1 active and out. We were pushing to get it out before obviously a few changes down in Westminster, which we've done, and you'll get more insight into that and details today. But it's great to be on board. It's going to be an exciting journey, and digital manufacturing really gives us a great opportunity to transform your businesses within the UK, and obviously from the business benefits that you'll see from that. But as always, it's the proof is in the doing, so hopefully we can get that moving, and over the next few months and years start to transform and move into the digital manufacturing environment. So thanks very much. I'm glad to be on board, and looking forward to meeting you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So without further ado, this is the agenda that we have. So quite a packed program of things. We're going to talk about the challenge itself. We're going to talk about this initial competition and the scope for it, and then we're going to go through some of the details, some of the rules that you need to be aware of if you're hoping to apply for this competition. We do have a question and answer session scheduled for after that, so we would ask if you can save your questions until that point, around about 12:15. Then we'll have a solid block of about half an hour to answer all of the questions that you have. Although not included on this slide, we do also have a further programme of activities after lunch. We have a presentation on UK 5G and its manufacturing applications. We have a presentation on A4I from Nigel Ricks from KTN, and then also opportunities for some smaller roundtable discussions with some facilitation from UKRI and KTN representatives to give you a chance to talk to us, to talk to others in the room about some of the ideas you may have for projects for this competition. So I'm just going to go over a bit of the background to the challenge, and Mark's given a great introduction to it, just to go through a few more of the details, and then Lynne will speak more about this competition in detail. So this Manufacturing Made Smarter Challenge is part of the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, which is now in its 3rd wave and is part of the government's modern industrial strategy. Specific objectives for this particular challenge are around the prosperity of UK manufacturing, looking at raising total productivity for those organisations that we're going to support, and making the UK a global leader of the 4th Industrial Revolution, whilst acknowledging the increasing importance of delivering clean growth. What we're hoping to achieve from that is to make the UK as a focal point for technologies around the fourth industrial revolution. We're looking at the fusion. We know that there's a lot of different technologies around that relate themselves to digital manufacturing, but the clear benefit, as we see it, is actually fusing these technologies together rather than just going and buying, for example, a machine, an additive manufacturing machine, and thinking that's the answer. We very much recognise the cross-sector nature of manufacturing and the benefits that cross-sector collaboration can bring to businesses and to the UK economy. And we want to target early adopters of industrial digital technologies right across supply chains and very much including small and medium enterprises. And we want to build on the UK excellence in digital technology and perhaps encourage companies who have excellence and expertise in areas such as AI and data to apply some of those technologies to manufacturing. So these are some further objectives that we've set ourselves, looking at increasing investment in industrial digitalisation and increasing investment in R&D. As I mentioned about cross-sector collaboration, we're really looking to encourage that, whether you're working in aerospace, automotive, chemical and pharmaceutical industries, all the way to things like food and drink, shipbuilding or electronics manufacturing. We really do want to encourage that collaboration because that's where the true value can come from an R&D point of view. We want to increase the number of digital companies, as I've already mentioned, who are providing solutions for manufacturing industries. And looking at how we support SMEs and companies throughout supply chains to work together to be able to support larger OEMs. And finally, we have ambitions on the global scale, internationally, to help increase exports and help companies who wish to work internationally in this area. This is a bit of a busy slide. This is really just to illustrate that whilst we are clearly targeting some economic benefits and impacts from this challenge programme, we also must consider some of the wider societal benefits and impacts. And that's very much been a theme when we were creating this programme, when we were working with a lot of you to bring this together into a compelling programme that it is now, is actually trying to find that balance of economic and social benefits. So looking at things such as skills, at CO2 emissions, some of the other things you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. So we should bear these in mind as we go forward today, that we do need to find this balance between the two. And as it says somewhat menacingly at the bottom there, we will monitor and evaluate the achievements of these objectives. I think that's probably more for us than for you. But it is something to bear in mind that actually the success of this programme as we go forward will be measured on the achievement of some of these. And certainly we will be measured on that internally, and we will probably ask some of the organisations we fund to also demonstrate how they've achieved that. Say a little bit about technical cohorts. This is something that we're very keen on bringing forward for this challenge. It's something we've done previously and perhaps a smaller scale in areas such as additive manufacturing. What we're really trying to do is to bring companies together, bring individuals together where they have expertise and really encourage them to share the learnings of what they've done, and also to help us to develop some of the future activities within this challenge. It's not all set in stone. We very much want to hear from you as to how you think we can best use this opportunity to support UK manufacturing. This is probably on top of our usual thing, as you can see in the middle, about communication and dissemination. Really, some of the key drivers that we're looking for here is actually to publicise the successes that you may have from the funding, from the projects that you're going to undertake, and really make that as a sort of a beacon of what's possible, and to really encourage other companies to step forward and try and adopt some of these new technologies. And our role in this, overall, it's in terms of programme governance, in terms of managing competitions and strategy, looking at the monitoring and evaluation of the programme overall, and really a key thing at the bottom, communications and stakeholder management. We need to communicate to you as to what's happening, where the programme's going next, but we also want to listen to you, get your feedback, and make this as useful as a programme as we can. So final slide, and this really, I guess, is a bridge to what Lynne's going to talk about in a minute, about this fast start competition. So this is really just to highlight that the initial activities in this programme, and this competition in particular, will be innovation focused. We haven't forgotten about research, academic research mainly, and growth, scale up for companies. They will come later on in this programme. The programme is focused around 4 innovation themes, which Lynne will talk about. And again, we do want to encourage cross-sector collaboration And one of the reasons for having this event today, we know it's not easy. It's very easy for me to say we're going to have cross-sector collaboration, put it up on a slide. We know in reality it's actually quite hard to do. So hopefully events such as this one will allow you to talk to people in other sectors, people you perhaps wouldn't normally come across, and to really help you in that regard. We're going to launch this competition. We did joke a while ago of calling it a fast start competition was the right thing to do. As Mark alluded to, perhaps it's taken a little bit longer than some of us would have liked, but we are here today and at this exciting moment to be able to bring forward this funding. After this competition, as it says, subsequent activities, we're going to build upon what we learned from this competition, what we learned from your feedback, and really try and tailor the rest of the programme as well as we can to try and capture what we think is the best outcome for the UK. Okay, that's probably enough from me. I'm now going to hand over to Lynne McGregor, who is going to talk about the competition in more detail and specifically the scope of the competition. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Hi, I'm Lynne McGregor. I'm the innovation lead for this competition. And I'll go through what the scope is and some of the rules, and then after that I'm going to hand over to our competitions exec who'll give you some more information. So to start with, this is the very first competition in this challenge, and we're glad that we finally were able to get it going. We're very much focusing on this, using industrial digital technologies to transform productivity and agility of UK manufacturing, as Simon just mentioned. It's really important. Now we've called it Fast Start, and we've called it Fast Start because we're looking at projects that are ready to go now. We were told by industry that a number of companies have budgets in this financial year that they want to be able to get going with now. So the whole idea is this competition is for things that you've already been working on probably for the past year or so. You're ready to go, and we want to get it going and get them moving quickly. There will be further competitions later on. So if you don't think that you're ready, if you don't see that you're in that position, don't worry. We will have other competitions, both CR&D and research and other ones coming up later on. So this competition in particular is really to kickstart this Made Starter challenge. We're looking for rapid impact, so we're looking for projects that will achieve something fairly early on. We're asking for a really wide variety of project types across a variety of technologies, markets, and research categories. So you'll see we've got a really broad scope of types of projects and size of projects. And that's because we want to find out what industry wants. What is it that we should be funding? So we're looking for insight from this competition so we can really learn what's important. So as I said, we welcome a wide variety of project types, going right from feasibility studies to quite large innovation in our demonstration projects. Your project should be able to achieve a rapid technology development or deployment. Because we've got such a wide variety of different things that we're asking for, we're going to use what we call a portfolio approach to give us a really balanced portfolio. And we're going to look at balances between the 4 innovation themes, balance across industrial sectors, and across different project types and company sizes. As I said, we are aiming for a fast start here. That's the whole point of this competition. So we have said in the brief that your projects must be able to start on or before the 1st of December. Now, we reserve the right to say if you're not ready by then, we won't be funding you. I'm not saying we're for sure not going to fund anything, but we reserve the right. We're really aiming for fast starts here. Projects must be business-led and must be collaborative. And all consortia should have at least one SME. And we really encourage involvement with SMEs. And as I said, competition closes at 12 midday on the deadline. We'll talk about the key dates later on. So I mentioned these 4 innovation themes. In the brief and here and on this slide, there's just a small outline of them. If you have any, want to know some more detail about the different innovation themes, please do ask me. We have some more information, but it's difficult to write it all down in the brief because they give us word counts. But, and also, these innovation themes they're quite broad and they do overlap. We understand they overlap, but we're using them so that we can we can make sure that these areas that we think are important, that we can make sure that we're funding something in each of these 4 areas, because we don't want to leave anything out. So the first one is all about the smart connected factory. And what do we mean by that? Well, it's things like using real-time data to optimize the operational efficiency. So right from factory floor through to the ERP systems, really getting the whole factory to working together to be smart and connected and optimized. So looking at things like capturing and analyzing and visualizing the whole manufacturing process. The second one is about connected and versatile supply chains. So here we're now looking at horizontally across the whole supply chain, making sure they're connected, information is flowing, it's all integrated, there's communications. Traceability is also really important, isn't it, so these days? So you can trace things all the way through from raw material through to the end product. And also it's about trust, being able to provide the information and understand and trust what's happening throughout the whole supply chain. The third one is we call design, make, and test, or some people say design, test, and make. It's all about that, the design to use chain. So how do we design things? How do we use digital technologies to design and take that design through to manufacturing and testing and use, integrating the information you get backwards again. So things like transforming the product design through digital technologies. Quite often it's all about virtual product design and testing. So you actually don't build the prototype, you do it all virtually, and then you come up with your final design. So virtual product testing, verification and validation, product monitoring and inspection, all of those things. So thinking about digital technologies in that space of getting from design to manufacture to use. And then the final one is adaptable, flexible manufacturing operations and skills. A bit of a mouthful. But here we're thinking about how digital technologies can help people the way they do manufacturing operations. So things about culture change and skills development. So, there's always a lot of concern about using automation technologies and they're going to get rid of people, and how they use it and what kind of things they do in a manufacturing facilities will have to change. So it's all about that sort of thing, and thinking about human-centric automation and autonomy so that we can have really expandable and flexible manufacturing processes. So that's the fourth one. And as we said, we're really broad across all industry sectors. So the projects must be led by an industry sector, but you need to show that there's at least 2 other sectors that are applicable to whatever it is that you're developing. And so if it's a very small project, you need to explain what the other sectors are and explain how these ones are going to be able to use the technology that you're developing. If it's a very large project, then we expect you to have partners from those other sectors, so show you that you really understand what they want and that they can start using them right away. So we've given a list of applicable sectors here, but they're really not limited to these ones. So we've got, well, I'm not going to read them all out, but if you think that if there's a sector that you're in and you think not in there, please do ask. Call up our customer support and ask whether or not it fits. So when you're answering the scope question in your application, and Izzy will go through about all the different questions, so you should, in that, outline which innovation theme your project addresses. This is really important because, as I said, we're going to balance our portfolio across these 4. So if you aren't in one, it's going to be very difficult for us to balance you. You also need to show how you're innovating and deploying industrial digital technologies within the manufacturing context, because that's what this challenge is all about. Talk about how the output and the learning from the projects are going to be shared across your sector and at least 2 other sectors. And then finally, how it addresses these overall manufacturing made smarter objectives that Simon went through. So we, as I said, throughout the whole challenge, we're going to be looking at those objectives, how we achieve the objectives. So it would be really nice if you can explain to us how your project will help us achieve those objectives. As I mentioned, that we're going to use a portfolio approach. So the way we score and we choose successful projects, we first start off with a panel with independent assessors who score them based on quality. But then we're going to use a moderation panel to help us prioritize the applications for our portfolio balancing. So the selection, as I said, is going to be looking at between those 4 innovation themes, between the different industrial sectors. We're going to be looking at different technology types. So we want to make sure that we're not funding just 3D printing or additive manufacturing, for instance. We want to make sure that there's a nice balance across all of the different technologies, but also remember that any project should be a fusion of technology. It shouldn't be just one technology. It should be using a number of different digital technologies together. As I said, balancing the project types and sizes and size of companies. And also we'll probably be looking at regional balance as well. We don't want them to be all in one region. We want to have a nice balance across the country. Okay, now I shall start going through the eligibility criteria, and you will see on our website there's an application brief, and they're in there. All of this information is there, but I'm just going to provide this, maybe give a little bit more detail. So to lead, you must be a UK-based business. The project must be collaborative. It must involve at least one UK SME. You need to carry out your project in the UK, and you need to exploit the results from or in the UK. As I mentioned, we're looking at a very wide range of project sizes, so anywhere from 250,000 right through to 10 million of total eligible project cost. And then we're looking at project lengths from between 6 months to 2 years. Now, I mentioned that we say that you should be able to start by the 1st of December. So if it's a 2-year one, it should finish then by the end of October 2021. So to lead a project, as I said, you must be a UK business of any size. In the brief, it says manufacturing business, but in manufacturing business, we do consider software and digital solution companies within that spec. You must collaborate with other businesses. You can't. Well, you must have at least one collaborative partner, and you can collaborate with other businesses or with research and technology organizations or with public sector organizations and charities. You should need to include at least one SME. As I said, you need to carry out your work in the UK and exploit your work in the UK. To be a partner in that consortium, you can be a UK-based business or an academic organization or a charity or public sector organization or an RTO. Again, carry out your project work in the UK and exploit it in the UK. Obviously, you need to be invited to take part by the lead partner, the lead applicant. And the lead and at least one of the partners must claim funding. Now, there are some times when a partner says, he doesn't want to claim funding, and that's fine, that's okay. But in your consortium, you must have at least 2 companies who are claiming funding. So as I said, quite often there are partners who don't want to be receiving any funding. Sometimes non-UK companies feel this way, but their costs will always contribute towards the total project cost. So the types of organizations that we fund: businesses, small, medium, and large; research organizations, which includes universities, non-profit distributing research and technology organizations, also public sector research organizations, research councils, and then public sector organizations and charities that are doing research activity. All of them must be based in the UK. One thing you need to understand is that if you are 100% owned by a large parent company, you are a large company, not an SME, even though you feel you may be an SME. There are EU rules about how your organization is classed, and please do look at that if you have any question, if you're not sure. And the link is down below, and it's also in our guidance. The funding that we're providing comes under state aid, and we are able to offer state aid under the general block exemption to eligible UK businesses. Now, there's a number of things that, because of that, there's a number of rules that come out. So one of them is that we cannot provide funding to limited liability companies that are known as undertakings in difficulty. And as it says, that's where more than half the companies that subscribe share capital has disappeared, or is less than their losses. It only applies to companies that are more than 3 years old. And if you have a parent company, then the test can be performed on your parent company. Now, this is important, and you should have a look on our link to see exact details about this, because we will be looking at this test, and you can only receive funding if you pass this test about the undertakings and difficulty. And you must also have a look to make sure that you are eligible for state aid. If you, as it says, if you're successful, we will test these things. So please do look at it beforehand. And all of this information is on our website under general guidance, under state aid. Now, grant rates. We are only able to provide grants of up to 40% of the total eligible project costs. And this regardless of how much each individual partner claims. So the state aid rules say that we can provide up to, so as it says, there's limits here. So for feasibility and industrial research projects, if you're a micro or small company, we can provide up to 70% of your project costs. If you're a medium-sized business, up to 60%. And if you're a large company, up to 50%. And then for experimental development, those rates go down, so 35% for an SME or 25% for a large business. And a research organization can claim up to 100%, but research organizations in this consortium can claim they can have only up to 30% of the total eligible costs. But the 40% limit here, so while any one company in the consortium can go up to those limits, we will only be able to provide 40% of the total eligible costs as grant. So you need to share that grant out between you. So that's something that you can do within your consortium, decide how you want to share that 40%. But that's all we're able to provide. And then we mentioned collaboration. So there's some rules about what do we mean by collaboration. It means you have at least 2 organizations claiming the grant, one of which is going to be the lead. This has to be a business-led consortium, and there needs to be evidence of effective collaboration. So we need to see from the structure, from your project plan, that you are actually collaborating. If you have two partners, say, and one of them is doing 99% of the work, that's not a collaboration. So that's something that we will look at. And then in terms of project applications, any one business can be involved in up to 3 applications in this competition, but you can only be the lead partner in 1. A research and technology organization or academic organization cannot lead, but they can be a partner in any number of organizations. And if you are unsuccessful, you can use the feedback to improve your project, and then to submit it to either another competition in this Made Smarter Challenge later on, or another competition somewhere else. But you can only submit it twice. One thing that you should be aware of is that if you have an outstanding final claim, an independent accountant's report on any live Innovate UK project, you are not eligible to apply for grant funding. And if you've applied in a previous competition as a lead or a sole company and you're awarded funding, but you didn't make a substantial effort to exploit that award, there's no more funding available. And to do that, we will look at the monitoring officer's reports to find out whether or not you've made a substantial effort. So, just a little bit of warning. Right, and I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Izzy Finlay-Day, who's going to tell you about all the lovely rules for applying for this competition through IFS.
Hi, so I'm Izzy. I'm going to go through quite a few slides now, hence my little cheat sheet here. First of all, it's going to be all based on our innovation funding service. So on here, when you want to click apply on the competition, the web page will direct you to one of these. Here you can use a keyword search to find the competition that you're interested in. Click the title, opens up in the competition. Within that competition, there's another tab view, which will show you eligibility criteria, scope, key dates, and information on how to apply. The important thing is about IFS is that it will give you guidance the entire way through. Keep up. Right. So to apply for competition, the lead applicant will need to create an account. If you've applied for previous competitions on IFS, then you can simply just sign in. You can use Companies House Lookup to search for your organisation to save typing in the name and address. If you're not on Companies House, so you can manually enter your information. We advise that research organisations and academics manually enter their information so that you're not listed as a business on IFS. This will then ensure that you do receive the correct funding. Okay, so into the project details. The overview of the first section is applicant details. Here you can invite other organisations that you plan to work with, or contributors, so you can invite people from your own organisation to help you complete the application. The application details themselves, including the title, timescales, research category, innovation area, and whether or not it's a resubmission. That's a yes or no question. The project summary, so a short summary and objectives of the project, including what is innovative about it. Public description, description of your project, which will be published if you are successful. And the scope, so how does your project align with the scope of this competition? If your project's not in scope, it will not be eligible for funding. So these are the questions within your application form. So you've got need or challenge, approach and innovation, team and resources, market awareness, outcomes and route to market, the wider impact, project management, risks, added value, costs and value for money. You'll notice questions 2, 3, 7 and 8 all come with an appendice. Do use these to your full advantage when it comes to your application. Into application details, finances even. So, breaking it down for finance-wise, so for labour costs, here you need to enter the role within the project, the gross annual salary, the number of staff and the days to be spent on the project. It will then automatically calculate the total costs. If you have multiple people in the same role on the same average salary, enter this in the role within project field. If an employee is part-time, you should enter their costs as a full-time equivalent. You can adjust the working days per year from the default if this is different from your project. And please note that dividends, bonuses and non-productive time cannot be included within your labour costs as they are ineligible. When making the grant claims against labour costs, actual cost claims must be supported with timesheets. Overheads. So Innovate UK's definition is that additional costs and operational expenses incurred directly as a result of the project. So this could include the additional costs for administrative staff, general IT, rent and utilities. Indirect overheads, please ensure they are additional and directly attributable to the delivery of the project. And then direct overhead is, as I said, office utilities, IT infrastructure, laptop provision not covered by capital usage. Again, must be directly attributed to the project, and you need to provide a detailed breakdown together with a methodology and basis of apportionment. So, material costs. Enter and describe what material costs you intend to use on the project, the volume and the cost. The materials listed must be project specific. Please provide as much information as possible. For example, just putting consumables at 50,000, this doesn't provide enough detail and you will be required to provide more information from our project finance team if you are successful. Any items which you would usually depreciate as per your company's policy should be listed in capital usage. Materials supplied by associated companies or subcontracted from other consortium members, these must be listed as cost, excluding any profit element or margin. As the slide says, please be clear on what the materials are. Just putting consumables, it's not enough information, and we have a very happy project finance team to go into everything with more detail. So, capital equipment usage. Here you'll need to describe how you're using the equipment, whether it's new or existing, the new purchase cost, how long you're depreciating it over, and the residual value at the end. These calculations will need to be in line with your accounting practices. Subcontractors. So for them to be eligible, they must be justified and quantified. If using non-UK subcontractors, you need to provide strong justification on why a UK-based subcontractor is not being used. If you're subcontracting to a parent or sister company, please ensure that you list at cost and do not include profit. travel and subsistence. Costs must be directly linked to the project. So we ask that you break down your costs as follow for travel, accommodation and subsistence. If you have an annual trip to visit the parent company, then this would not be eligible. So other costs. We ask you that you do check the finance guide for what costs can be included here. If you're unsure, please do not hesitate to contact our customer support. We ask that you do not double count, and just be aware that patent filing costs for new IP for SMEs is up to £7,500. It doesn't go above that for any larger company. Any other costs, so the costs that don't fit within previous categories, for example, could be training directly attributable to the project, licensing new technologies, and again, patent filing. So, as previously mentioned, the level of funding awarded will depend on the type of organisation and the type of research being undertaken in the project. IFS will calculate your grant rate percentage based on the answers inputted. So it takes into consideration the type and size of your organisation and the research category that you're under. This could change the amount that you're entitled to. So this is just a reminder. So for business, you have micro and small up to 70%, medium 60%, large 50% under the feasibility studies or industrial research. Under experimental development, this goes down to micro small 45%, medium 35%, and large 25%. All these slides will be available to you later should you need to go back and have a look at these. This is an example of a consortium. It's not one that your consortium has to match, it's just an example for you to see here. Again, if you need to go back and have a look at this as an example, it's there for you later on. So if we break down to the academic partners now, we use JES for our academic partners, which is the Joint Electric Submission System. This is used to collect the academic finances. The JES system will automate the collection of the full economic costs based on the cost for the academic partners and tell them exactly what numbers should be used in the application form for their costs. Very confusingly, we fund 100% of the 80% of the FEC. Also to collect project finance details from the non-HEIs, for example, the RTAs, that are claiming they are carrying out academic quality work and want to be funded on an FEC basis. And using JES means Innovate UK follows standard Research Council guidelines on funding universities, enables research councils to easily co-fund any Innovate UK projects. So when filling out this on IFS, we ask that you enter the TSB reference number at the top, which will be on your JES form. Ask that you enter the TSB contribution column figures from your JES output document into the project cost section of the application, and then upload the JES with council status form on the PDF at the bottom of the screen. If it does not state with council, we will not go forward with funding, or we will ask for another submission, I should say, one that does say it's with council. So the normal JES application elements, so not just financials, but the justification of resources, pathways to impact. If you need more information, the best place to go is to the JES website or follow this email address here. We can't really advise on the JES, it is a separate thing altogether. Right, on submitting your application. So this is a summary of the project costs available to all organisations in the project. You will not be able to see any more detail or breakdown of anyone else's costs. This is also what the assessors will see, unless they are given a more detailed overview. That's done by competition. So do ensure that the highlighted cost fits the criteria for this competition and state the total project costs criteria. So I'm checking that your finances are complete. For collaborative applications, which for this competition they all should be, IFS will highlight to the lead applicant any partners that have outstanding project finances to complete, and all finances must be included in the application before the lead applicant can submit. It will also check that your research participation costs are within the required limits. Again, this is 30%. so we are able to track the site usage when it comes to IFS, and we do strongly recommend that you get it in sooner rather than later. This table just shows a number of applicants that submit their proposals each hour leading up to the noon deadline. As you can see, the majority of applicants leave it to the final hours, and there may be chances that it doesn't work out in your favour. But if you do have any issues beforehand, do get in contact with our customer support. If you can do that as fast as possible, then we can help you as soon as possible. And if not, we can note that you are ready to submit but are coming up with issues. The submission date for this one is the 28th of August, and that's noon on the 28th of August. So, how are we going to assess your applications? All of the applications are assessed by independent assessors drawn from industry and academia. They are looking for clear and concise answers, the right amount of information, so not too much detail and no assumptions, and they're looking for quantification and justification, a proposal that presents a viable opportunity for growth, a level of innovation that necessitates public sector investment, and has the right team and approach to be successful. We say aim to keep the assessors engaged and interested in your proposal. You always want them to be fascinated by your idea. This is a excerpt from a panel sheet that is used once we have all of our assessments back in from our assessors. It shows us a score spread between the top and the bottom scores. If score spread is 30 or more, we look into it to see if there's any outliers that are apparent. And if there's 3 or more appear in either the 2 columns of count of no scope or count of no as recommended, review the application's feedback, and if justified, the application will not be eligible for funding. So when we identify the outliers, the green box highlights a particular assessor's scores on an application, and the purple box highlights a set of scores for a particular question. We look for a difference of 20 or more within the assessor's total score to identify an outlier. At first glimpse, we would consider assessor 3 to be the outlier with a score of 62, but again, this will then be backed up by feedback. This is all done to ensure fairness across the scoring of your projects. Assessor feedback. So the lead applicant will be notified when the feedback's available. Then you can just go on to IFS dashboard to view the feedback. If you are successful, so IFS successful applicants, the project setup, it's 8 steps to complete, applicable to all grant claiming partners, and it must be completed within 30 days. Projects must start within 90 days or the funding will be withdrawn. Confirmation of your bank account is required to ensure we are paying the correct organisation. That you may or will be asked to provide a redacted bank statement to confirm this. Project change requests cannot be submitted before the project starts. Oh, I forgot to put a forward, sorry. Okay, so yeah, as I said, 8 steps to complete. The lead will be able to see everything to make sure that everyone's on board. No in detail, nothing with detail, sorry, including your bank details, that's completely private, but that will be seen by the lead to make sure it is at least there. So the collaboration agreement. We frequently see that projects get held up by the collaboration agreement, so we ask that you start thinking about it as soon as possible. We won't be able to pay your first claim without a signed collaboration agreement by all the people within your consortium. So this is an original agreement signed by all participants. The key features include who is in the consortium, what are the aims and how the work is divided up, ownership of any IPR, and management of consortium. As I said, it can be complex and time-consuming. Innovate UK can have absolutely no input within this collaboration agreement. It's completely within yourselves and your consortium. Grant claims and payments. So all grants are claimable quarterly in arrears. Claims can only be made for costs incurred and paid between the project start and end dates. Claims may be subject to an independent audit, including your academic partners, according to the grant size. And claims are only paid once quarterly reporting and necessary audits are complete. Projects over 6 months are monitored on a quarterly basis, including a visit from the appointed monitoring officer. Anything outside of this will be discussed on a case-by-case basis. And the monitoring will be carried out against a detailed project plan and financial forecast. which is also a part of your project setup. Any project change requests that you happen to have, as I said, they're unable to process any before the grant off letter is issued. If you're a member of collaboration, has failed the UID test, as unable to resolve this, you'll be advised to withdraw and apply in the next round of the competition. Again, our project finance team do all they can to help everyone through the UID process. And PTRs will only be agreed and authorised by the head of operational delivery. So if you have any questions regarding the application process or finances, you feel free to contact us at the Customer Support Service. There's also the KTN or the Innovate website, should you need anything else. Okay, thank you very much. Who's going up now?
So thanks, Izzy, for that very comprehensive overview. I think we're actually in the unusual position of being ahead of schedule, so thanks to the speakers for doing things within the time allotted. I think now we have the chance to do some question and answers, which I think we'll take, if we can take, with everyone sitting where they are, and also, if you bear with us, we will also be trying to answer questions that come from the online community, and I think someone at the back will probably help us to read those out and try and answer those. So if I can invite anyone who has a question to perhaps stay who you are and where you're from, and we'll start from there. Turn my back too soon. Sorry, if you just 2 seconds, just wait for there's a microphone on its way.
Stephen Carhenny from a company called Ty6. If we've had applications into normal Innovate Smart Awards around this theme and we modify them, can we resubmit them into this?
Yeah, well, yes, you can. You cannot get funding for the same project twice. Yeah. If it is a different project, then fine. If it's the same project, if you then find out that you're successful with SMART, then we'll take you off this one.
Rob Scott, High Volume Manufacturing Catapult. The terminology on the website for the 4 themes is subtly different to the earlier briefing events. I realise there is a word limit, but can you clarify any further the 4 themes?
Yes, and because of the word limit, we couldn't put more information in. I'm happy to send around the wider explanation for the 4 themes to anyone who wants them. They're quite broad, and you can have some, consider what we mean by that and see whether or not it fits. And if you're not sure, do put a question into customer support to find out, or ask me for a broader definition of the 4 themes.
Morning, Stephen Barr from Edge Digital Manufacturing. You mentioned that SMEs that have a large parent would be counted as large companies. Can you just clarify, I may have missed it, SMEs that have a large overseas parent, are they cast as UK or not?
Do you know, is it? I think that they are probably counted as UK if they have a UK company listing, but I would have a look at the general guidance, the rules to check. If they operate in the UK, yeah, I think the UK. But if they are owned by a large parent, then they will not be an SME.
Okay, should we take some online questions as well? Would that be all right, panel? So coming in from the online community, we have, from a GDPR perspective, can timesheets be anonymised?
Is it any ideas? It's a good one. Yeah. The monitoring officer is the one who deals with checking out timesheets. The way they currently do it is they will ask for timesheets and a random thing just to check. If there are so many issues, then I think it's something to be worked out with the monitoring office. But obviously we will we will try and deal with all the issues and deal with GDPR. But monitoring officers have to be assured that that the project they're monitoring is doing what they say they're doing.
Thank you. And another one, what is the difference between experimental and feasibility projects?
There is a definition in our guidelines. I suggest you have a look at that.
Thank you.
Can't rattle it all off from the top of my head.
If there's no more questions in the room, I'll keep going with the online community. With regard to Q4, market awareness, is this the market for the IDTs being used in the consortia, or is it the markets of the company partners accruing the productivity benefits?
Interesting question. That's a good one. It's going to be the market that the project is looking at. So if it's a project with, say, an automotive company who are going to look at using digital technology to improve their products and increase the amount of earnings they get, then it's that application, that automotive manufacturing. If it's a company who are producing digital technologies that they want to then go out and sell to all manufacturing operations, a specific type of digital technology, then I think it's that market. So it's a market that the project is trying to develop for. I hope that gives a good enough explanation. If it doesn't, please do come to customer support and ask something more detailed.
Again, every question on IFS will have a guidance with it, which will help you. It will show you what it is that we're after, whether you are to describe or explain certain parts. Yeah. So it will help within every question.
Great, thank you. Another one is with regard to non-grant claiming partners, how will their contribution be assessed, recorded and monitored? E.g., do they make a certified in-kind contribution through a partner?
They should be filling in a financial details form as well. So even though they're not asking for a grant, they should be filling in the IFS forms and say what it is that they're going to be putting in. And that will be monitored as well, just the same as any other grant receiving partner.
And in fact, we would encourage them or require them to take part in the quarterly meetings that go on with the monitoring officer, even though they're not claiming grant. They are part of the project consortium who are delivering whatever the output of the project is, so they would be required to take part in those meetings.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Rowley from Digits to Widgets. I'm just wondering who the technology assessors are, whether they work for Innovate UK or whether they're independent experts in the field.
They are independent experts in the field. They do not work for Innovate UK.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Radhika from Shadow Robots. With the 40% funding out of the project eligible costs, this is something different from the normal Innovate UK. So if it is, for example, a 500K project, so we are only looking at 40% of 500K, and that will be split according to the state aid. Am I right in understanding? Or?
That is correct. It's not the usual. This one is different, and we are only able to provide 40% of the total eligible costs. So if it's a 500K project, yes, it's 40% of that we can provide as grant.
Okay. And one more question is, when you say the fast track projects, if it is a feasibility study, so are you still expecting it to be at a higher TRL level?
That's a very good question. And if it's a feasibility study, yes, you might say, well, how the heck do you get rapid impact from that? I would expect it to be something that in that feasibility study, you are able to then identify some areas where you can get rapid impact. So that feasibility study on its own will not have rapid impact. I can understand that. But it's something that you'll be showing that there will be.
It's probably fair in saying that the Fast Start project is around high TRL, low MRL. So effectively, we're trying to ensure that if we use the rule of thumb that's 80-20, that 80% of the technology is available, it's not in the domain or it's not in the appropriate application, then competition one's all about that translation, very quick. But obviously we do want to start the work around enabling feasibility studies to allow us to get the traction or insights into later competitions. So the first part is, we need to start getting traction on these projects. And as we said from the outset, the agility that we're going to build into the subsequent competitions are around insights that each of the competitions give us and what people are interested in trying to explore. So competition 2, 3, 4 will take a different shape as we go forward, and that's something we want to really sort of push for. So we want the competition process to be innovative in terms of and agile as we go through the challenge itself.
Hi, can you give us an indication on timings of the subsequent competitions? Ballpark.
Timing.
So in terms of subsequent plans, we can't declare that at the moment. We're in the process of developing the process going forward. I would say that it will be multiple competitions, so we're not waiting for 12 months before we're not doing an annual approach. We're going to effectively respond and be very active in that. So there will be a succession of competitions. We're going through preparing that as we speak. We're hoping to get sight of that at the moment. Don't quote me, but probably we want to get that by the end of the year to get a feel for the rollout of the competitions. But obviously this initial competition should give us the shape for competition 2, 3 and 4. But it will be a fairly dynamic. Hopefully we'll give it a bit more lead time in terms of heads up on the competitions, and but it will be quite a dynamic process, and it will be a quite a frequent cadence of activities. It's a big landscape of technology. It's a big project to explore, so we understand we need that agility into the formation of each of the competitions.
So a little bit more from online. Philip, who asked the GDPR question earlier, didn't feel that was answering it fully, but perhaps we can follow up with that offline later. We have another question from Cormac Neeson online. He says, as I understand it, large projects need project members from across 3 sectors. Is this correct? And if so, then what is the definition of a large project?
Okay, I shall answer that one. I'm not going to give a definition of a large project. That is something that you should decide yourself. As I said, the assessors will be looking to see whether or not you understand the needs of your own sector and 2 other sectors, and that you have plans for how you're going to use and roll out whatever you're developing through those sectors. Obviously, if you have partners in those sectors, it makes it a lot easier to show to assessors how you understand and how you're going to roll them out. So it's up to you to decide whether or not you want partners in those sectors, but it will make it much easier for you to convince the assessors that you know what you're talking about in terms of what they need and how you can roll it out. If you're a small project and you really can't deal with that many consortium partners, then you need to say how you're going to do it without the partners.
It's probably fair to say that what we don't want to encourage is artificial collaboration. So we need to have genuine collaboration. I think from my experience is that that other sector insights can significantly improve project value. I think the cross-sector bit really starts to give you different insights into the technologies. So the technology could be the cornerstone of your collaboration, and then what we'd be looking for is how that technology is applied in terms of the applications. So I think I think different sectors bring different perspectives and opportunities, and I think, as we said before, it's about, don't want to use the word smart too much, but that sort of smart application of the core technologies and insights, and the breadth of some of the technology development that can be seen by using that cross-sector working.
Thank you. We'll just have one more online question for the moment, then we'll come back into the room. How exactly is the 40% limit of the total eligibility or eligible project costs? Could you consider an example with 4 organisations, each with 200k project costs, 3 SMEs and 1 university, for a total of 800k?
Not sure what the question is.
Perhaps I'll ask the asker to reword the question, actually. Let's go back into the room and
Okay. I would say have a look. So in the slides that Izzy showed, there was an example of how a project might be split up. And basically it had an example of some SMEs and large companies and an academic, and how would you split it? And basically, you can only get, so there's the state aid eligibility tells you the maximum that you can get, and then the 40% tells you the amount of grant funding there is, and then you split it between the partners, and how you split it really is up to the consortium.
Okay.
As long as it fits the thresholds, yeah.
They need to pull up a financial model, basically, with a spreadsheet, and they have to put it industrial research, experimental development, ratios for everything.
Yep. So have a look at the worked example, because it shows that. So it says, okay, so these are the different types of organizations and the different type of, whether it's industrial research, and that tells you your maximum loading. And then from that, you decide how you're going to split up the amount of grant.
Okay, Nikki Matthews, University of Southampton. It's on the same theme, but perhaps a little bit more specific. The 30% eligible costs that universities might be able to apply, is that 30% of the 40% grant total?
No, that's 30% of the total project cost.
Okay, thank
so
you.
if it's a £2 million project, then 30% of that can be taken up by academics and RTOs.
And that would leave 10% for the company, the lead company?
70%, sorry.
Sorry, my question is the 30% that universities are able to apply for, is that 30% of the total grant costs, or
Okay.
30% of the total eligible project costs?
Again, that is up to the consortia to decide whether or not that to fund all 100% of that academic
Okay.
cost, or maybe the academic puts some funding in themselves.
Yeah.
That's up to the consortia to decide.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shadin Jaradat, University of Manchester. It's also related to this. But basically, if any funding is allocated to a university, be it from the total eligible cost or from the 40% that we would apply for, is there any distinction that is worth noting between the Made Smarter funding and any other typical, say, UKRI funding in terms of how we spend that funding? Or is it potentially business as usual in the sense that we can, for example, hire a postdoc for 2 years for the duration of the project?
So I think the rules, if that's the right word, for this competition are very similar to our usual sort of competitions, if there's such a thing as a usual competition. So yes, it would be what you would normally expect. Some of the key differences we've highlighted around the 40% funding cap. Otherwise, it's fairly similar to normal Innovate UK competitions. So that should include what you've just mentioned.
Yeah, I think if there are things that you can put in the JES form or you can put in the IFS form, then they are eligible.
Okay, back to the online community. In the case of a large project, are subcontractors to the SME, which we prefer in order to tightly control the work in this case, with a FTSE 100 company, considered part of the consortium?
If the SME is a partner, then they're part of the consortium. If the SME is a subcontractor, then it's not part of the consortium, it is a subcontractor.
Thank you. That was very swift and clear. Thank you, Lynn. Another question from online. I'm assuming that project costs can include the depreciation of any capital equipment used in the project.
Yes, yes, it does. Again, IFS will show you, but depreciation is very much an input needed within capital usage. Sorry.
Thank you. Any more in the room?
Yes, hello. I was wondering if you have a project that is mostly industrial research and then the final stages and the work packages go to experimental development, how do you work with that? Could you take the costs of those specific work packages and reduce the contribution and claim for something that will be a mix? Or should we just claim for industrial research? Or
I think if you're starting the project as industrial research, then you can carry it out as industrial research. If it comes to a point where it's no longer classified as that, then I believe you'd have to put forward a PCR and work with your monitoring officer in the state. Your monitoring officer will be more than happy to help throughout the entire change, but hopefully a project could be completed as one.
no, I just wonder because the fast start, you aiming in higher TRL levels, and then you get to that mix where it's not industrial research anymore. So I was just wondering which one should I apply for an application point of view before you get granted?
It might be worth considering splitting them because of the way that you want to work it. So in terms of, I know what you're saying is doing some industrial research that you believe you can start to apply. That might work not in your favour in terms of because you're driving towards a higher TRL than adoption. So you would be driving yourself into lower percentages. But some of these projects you need to think about that whether it's 2 bites of the cherry or is it just one in terms of the work to be done. I mean, this particular competition is about that quick translation and adoption. So, the ability to do, that industrial research at the front end is something you need to think about. And again, it's part of the portfolio in terms of what we're trying to develop. As I said to before, we do want the quick turnaround projects, but we also want this sort of foundation activity going on to help us with further competitions and adoptions. Because we know that there's some challenges, there's some tough, sticky technologies out there that we know are going to be challenging to adopt, and we do need that foundation work to happen. But there's a lot of technology now that we can get and apply in competition one. We want to start to see that, and then we've got to be fair, we have a model, an indication of what we think that shape will be from the initial competition through to the latter years. But the view is that we do need a portfolio approach. The bias will be towards that fast adoption, but understanding we want to start some of the work to prepare us for the mid-term competitions and so forth. So it's worth just thinking about what you're trying to deliver, and try not to make the only thing I'd say or advice I'd give or suggestion would be keep it something, get your hand around, get a good collaboration, keep it focused and deliver on that ground, and even think about later competitions.
Thank you.
We've just had a look at the form, and really you can just say one type of, whether it's industrial research or experimental development. I suggest say what it is, what the main part of it is. One of the things that we do with that is that we ask the assessors to say whether they think it's industrial research or experimental development. So if the majority of it is industrial research and the assessors agree on that, then that's what it will, and you've said that it is, that's what it will be. There's one up here. Anita.
Thank you. Ayantika from TI6 as well. So with the rapid impact aspect, could you give an indication of whether, so in terms of the application form, is that, do we demonstrate that the technology is being deployed rapidly, or is it more the benefits to the businesses as well needs to be rapid? Because sort of with IDTs in particular, it can, with efficiency gains, it can take a bit of time before you actually get sort of the financial impact on businesses. So how do we sort of square that?
I think from the what's probably likely to happen is the big thing is about demonstrating. Whilst we talk about proof of concepts, the proof of value. So whilst you've probably got an industrialisation plan that takes you from technology to application, this is about being able to demonstrate the proof of value at that sort of demonstration level, in the sense of, you know, you've done that, you understand the recipe, you can demonstrate the benefit from your own industrial perspective, as a means of preparing you then to go into industrialisation. Because it could be that you could find a very quick result in 6 months, but find that there's an industrialisation plan to do that full exploitation. So that's important to try and understand that, because that'll be something that is an insight into your technology journey. You know, you can say, yes, we can do a proof of value, we can see what the benefit is, and we've sort of understood now the scale of the industrialisation plan and how would that manifest itself. Because the things that we're doing for this project within the challenge is all about what happens over the next 10 years. So, you know, I'd love to be sitting here and you're saying, well, I can do something in 6 months, we'll have it 12 months, and it's on board and we're actually getting the productivity gains. I think it's about saying we've got a really good proof of value that we can show that by doing this and this, that will give us that improvement from this particular industry perspective.
Yes, I think one of the reasons why we started off by saying what was the objectives of the whole challenge is that we are trying to get the use of industrial digital technology spread out throughout UK manufacturing. And with this competition, we want to have a really good start on that. So we would like to, and when projects are finished, we want to broadcast what kind of benefits there are and what they're achieving, so that we can really push the adoption, so we can tell everyone, other UK manufacturing companies, this is the way to do it, and really spread the news, which is why the requirement for this rapid impact, so we can really push these things forward as quickly as possible.
From a small business, looking at the notes, are you keen for a larger business to be involved as one of the partners as well, rather than just a network of small businesses as partners?
No, network with small businesses sounds really good.
One of the biggest opportunities we have with the challenge is really, I know it's a bit corny, but mobilising the masses. The only way that the challenge and the impact is going to be seen is getting many companies involved, and whilst you'll see large players in the mix, we believe that the whole ecosystem needs to be built. So as we go through the overall challenges through the years, we need to encourage small companies getting on board in terms of working with their third, second, first OEM suppliers, but as importantly is making sure that people can take this journey and then can become the next generation of suppliers into those organisations and so forth. So it's really important that we get the reach on the journey, on the challenge, and we've got some mechanisms to do that. I don't know whether we're talking about network today, but there's going to be a mechanism for reaching out to companies both within the projects and outside the projects as well, to start to see the opportunities that the digital manufacturing approach can bring to whatever scale. So this is about looking at tailored, the solutions that fit the business, appropriately. So it's really important that we mobilise as many businesses in this space as we can.
Yeah, and one of the things that we recognise is that most UK manufacturing businesses are SMEs. So we definitely need to mobilise SMEs in the UK manufacturing community. So it's, you know, the large companies probably already know about this and they're probably already starting on it. We want to make sure that we get the message through to those SMEs as well and all the way through the supply chains.
On the funding criteria, the 40% value for the funding, should that be split between the participants within the consortium? That can be agreed within the consortium? Or?
Exactly, that can be agreed within the consortium. We're not saying how you should split it. It's up to the consortium to decide.
Up to the maximum value of each participant.
Exactly.
They can be. The other thing about 30%, the share of the RTO, does that mean 30% is the cost for the RTO that can't be exceeded for the eligible cost?
Okay, so in any project, there is eligible cost from each of the different partners. And what we're saying is that the eligible cost from the RTOs or academic can only be up to 30% of the total project eligible costs.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that understood? Okay.
Yeah.
So you made a bit of a thing there about mobilising the masses and doing things for the SMEs. I think I know the answer, but are there any requirements within this that one of the SMEs involved with the project is a manufacturer? Or could it be you've got a large manufacturer and actually the SME can just be the tech company, which they predominantly will be?
I think in terms of there'll be a combination. I think we're not only building. Clearly, we want to grow the productivity, but in terms of support, we anticipate that we want to grow some of the technical capacities as well. So the one thing we really want to push for is capabilities. So that will give us the sustainability as we go forward. So in terms of SMEs, there'll be participation to grow those businesses in terms of technical offering. So, you know, I think the view from the SMEs point of view, they are a UK business and are contributing to a productivity performance within the project that's been put on being put forward. So, you know, I don't think they need to be a manufacturer per se. Clearly, we would encourage that they are a manufacturer if they are technical capabilities that actually allow a manufacturer to develop. Then that's got to be a good thing.
Stephen Carpenny from Ty6 again. Listening to what you've just said is all sort of very logical. You stated you want to get a lot of SMEs involved. You stated that the technologies you see coming out will be getting technology to a level where it could be applied, and then the actual value of that technology will be downstream over the next 10 years. That kind of suggests you're expecting technology levels coming out at TRL6, TRL7, maybe TRL8 from this phase that will then mature to industrializable technologies subsequently, which sounds more like the normal Innovate UK lower TRL development phase. So it just seems interesting that you've gone for a 40% funding model, which is industrial experimentation, if I got it, no, experimental research, high TRL stuff. Are you expecting subsequent calls to then, so you've identified problems that can't be solved quickly and therefore need more baseline R&D, and those may come in higher funding rates, because 40% for SMEs is very, very challenging if you can't turn it into product sales rapidly to earn money. So, maybe easy for JLR, but not for an SME.
So what you've sort of explained is the sort of thing that we're looking at from a conceptual point of view. We know that there's going to be challenges out there that we're going to need to fix. I wouldn't underestimate the technology application in terms of the level of be careful with the words of research that we have to do to allow that to translate. But absolutely, we need to create a level of pull. We need to sort of demonstrate the benefits. So I'm talking not necessarily at project level, I'm talking at the challenge level. So people need to see the opportunity. And then we really, we need to bring people in and reach out to get people to see that opportunity. But absolutely, in terms of the sort of competition one's about high TRL, so technology that's available, but the MRL is very low. And that in itself is a challenge to get that translation of that technology to the manufacturing processes. And then going forward, we know where some of the technology will be insufficient or won't translate, or we need some new technology to allow us to do it. And as Lynne has already said, it's a fusion of technology. So, we've got the 4 themes. We anticipate you'll have a critical mass in one. Your project will lean towards a particular theme, but it'll have a tail into the other themes. And what we'll find, if we're not careful, if we don't hit these gaps as we go forward, as we go into latter competitions, what will happen is we'll stall. So that ability to then, it'll lead us to we believe this will be a proof of value, but there's a hard rock in the way. And then we need to then think about how do we address that hard rock to actually free that application up. So that's the sort of recipe as you've explained. Absolutely.
If you can't see a near-term return on work you're doing, being funded at 40% versus funded at 70% makes it very, very challenging to...
Yeah, we recognise that, and as I've said before, the agility that we have and the shape of each of the competitions will be derived from what we see from industry feedback, the technology cohorts that we're developing, the demonstrations that will be going on, and so that will all give us the insight to allow us to then formulate the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th competition.
There's a question online from Jack. Will live KTP projects prohibit applications into this competition?
No.
Thank you. Back into the room if there's any more there.
A simple question: do you have a total level of fund, total number of projects or amount of fund you can do this time around, or that's open?
Oh, we haven't said that, have we?
You managed to avoid saying that. So this competition has as funding, the total funding pot is £30 million. How many projects that funds depends on how many people apply, clearly, but the size of the projects that apply, there's quite a wide range, so it's not really possible to say how many will fund.
That's interesting. I didn't say that. We did.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. It seems though the questions have fizzled up just for a moment. We can come back to more later on. So at this point, I think we'd like to close the webcast and say thank you to the online community for all your questions and being involved.